message. Good
Morning.
morning. Good morning still. As by this time now, it's gotten pretty normal to see me speaking, giving messages, which is nice. I like that it's now become normal for me to give messages. And so I rarely get the opportunity to use props in my messages. And so now what do we have all around us? We got sand. And so I want everyone to pick up a handful of sand, if you are able. I know it's a little difficult.
If you're able.
If you're able.
Oh, sorry, Abel. Only Abel.
Able, do it. Yeah.
Alright, so I want all of you to sift through the sand and try to get to a countable number of sand grains.
One.
A countable. How many of you can get enough sand, can sift through the sand enough where you're like, okay, I can count like 6?
One.
Yeah.
1?
0.
But I no nail. My point being, it's like you feel free to look at it while I'm speaking, because it's just a good frame of reference. Just for the magnitude of God. And that's what I'm talking about. The magnitude of God and faith. So, the 2 verses I'll be focusing on are in Hebrews. Hebrews 11, verse 1. Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. And we skip down to verse 12 where it says, and so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as countless as the sand on the seashore. And so when it's nice because times like this I get to do a little bit different message giving. And so I was curious. I was like, numerous, or as numberless, as just incountable as the sand on Earth. And so I was thinking, how much sand is on Earth? And so I actually Googled it. I love the world we live in today, that we can do this. So this is just a guesstimation because you can't get an exact number. But we all trust Google. Okay, so it says, they said if you assume a grain of sand has an average size, and you calculate how many grains are in a teaspoon, and then multiply by all the beaches and deserts in the world, the earth has roughly, and we're speaking roughly here as in parentheses, 7.5 times 1,018 grains of sand, or 7 quintillion 500 quadrillion grains. Now, that number is so big that people don't have a good grasp of that. So let me give you a little frame of reference for that. So, we all know what 1 million is. It has 6 zeros behind it, right? 1 million seconds is 3 weeks. 1 billion seconds is 33 years. So let that just sink in, just the difference between 3 zeros in that. So that's a good frame of reference. Now, I did more research on numbers. So, I said a quintillion. So, we start with million, 6 zeros. We move up to billion, 9 zeros. We move up to trillion, 12 zeros. We move up to quadrillion, 15 zeros. We move then up to quintillion, 18 zeros. There. And for me, everyone's different. For me, when I look at just like the reality and just like numbers, that blows my mind for God. And so, we're assuming that there are 180 or 7 quintillion 500 quadrillion grains of sand. And then I looked even further, one more time, into the stars in the galaxy. As this site says, there are 100 to 400 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, and more than 100 billion galaxies in the universe. Maybe as many as 500 billion, and as we know, the universe is still expanding. If you multiply stars by galaxies, at the low end, you get 10 billion stars, or 10 sextillion stars in the universe. And that's a 1 followed by 22 zeros. So, my point that I'm trying to get across is just the magnitude of God. As we heard from Robbie earlier, he was talking about just the God of creation. When we talk about creation, it's so easy when we're in a church setting to just be like, oh, creation is these chairs and a pulpit, the band playing. It's easy to forget about creation around you, but when we're out here, we get to see a little bit more, just the massive size of the sea. It is beyond my own vision how deep and how wide and how gigantic the sea is. And to think that our God has a love for us that is more massive than this massive body of water for us. And we see in Hebrews that faith, I just love that here in Hebrews it talks about how faith is confidence in what we hope for, that faith is a large form of hope, for assurance for things we don't see. They admit that we can't see God. We can't see Him. We can see what He's made. We can see His blessings. But none of us have ever seen the face of God. None of us have ever physically hugged God. And so we see in all of this, throughout this entire passage of Hebrews 11, it says, by faith, we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. By faith, it talks about Abel. By faith, it talks about Enoch. After that, it talks about, by faith, Noah. By faith, Abraham. By faith, even Sarah, who was past her childbearing age, was able to bear children. And so it is just amazing for me when I just am able to stand in creation, whether it's like I'm out hiking somewhere in the mountains, or it's a little easier for me on the beach, because we see that there's a God that exists, that has created all of this, created 7 quintillion, 500 quadrillion grains of sand, created 22 sextillion stars in the galaxy, and yet He cares about our everyday. He cares about our problems that we go through. His heart breaks when someone that we care about dies. He mourns with us. As we see in the Bible and we see in the Gospels, we see that Jesus cried. He is human. He's 100% human, 100% God. And He hurts when we hurt. And we know that by faith, anything is possible through Him. We know that Sarah can bear children. We know that Abraham can have descendants like the number of grains of sand in the entire earth, which I looked up too. There hasn't been that many humans yet. There's only been about 106 billion humans in the earth as of now that have existed from the creation of man up until now. And it's still going. And it's just so astounding to just be here. And so I just encourage all of us that when we're here, just to take a moment alone and just really soak in just that God has created this for us. God didn't create this just so He could relax on the beach. He didn't create this just because it looks nice for Him and He's just so amazing and He could create a million different realities if He so desired. He did this for us, for the love of us, because that's the one thing that He can't create. That's the one thing He can't force, is our love, and we give it to Him willingly because He's so deserving of it. And we know that just by faith. We know we are saved. By faith we have His grace that covers us. And we know that God is good all the time. So just as Robbie was saying, in those storms, in those times where things are looking rough, we know that by faith God will save us through it. We know by faith He will be there. By faith He will help us. He will guide us. He will be our shield. He will be our protection. He will be our healer. He will be our everything. So when later today, I just advise it for just us to go out and just soak it all in and just know this is created by God. And yet He still cares about us, even though He's looking over. He is keeping an entire universe of planets held up only by Him. That He is still there in our everyday. He is there in our low moments when we are doing horrible things. He is there in our high moments when we are bringing someone to their Father. He's there and He loves us the same, both ways. By faith, we know that we are saved.